G'day everyone, welcome to episode 128 of the Trademate Sports Betting Podcast, a betting preview of the 2021-22 English Premier League season. How exciting. Introducing the following, Nigel Seeley from Premier Sports Players. How are you, mate?
Very excited, as you can tell by our demeanour. We're really looking forward to this one. Another Premier League season coming around so quick. It only seems like, well, a few weeks ago, which it was a few weeks ago, that we were at the Euros. So, no rest at all. And we're going for another 9-month slog. So, can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, these boys, I've never seen them so keen in my life. It's 8:30 in the morning in the UK, and it's 5:30 in the afternoon for me. So I'm firing. I'll bring the heat today, but not sure about these fellas. George Gamble, welcome back, mate. A summer break of sorts, you might want to call it.
Well, not really, but yeah, no, I cannot wait for the football season to get back underway. But I tell you what, this is why I could never live where you are. Getting up at 6:30 to watch a game, nah, it's just not happening.
But no, exciting. More like 12:30 at night.
Oh, well, wherever it's 6:30, I couldn't live there. But yeah, no, I cannot wait for the new season to get underway. Looking forward to it. Lots of action, and I know we sort of say it's a long old slog, but we absolutely love it, don't we? So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the podcast I look forward to every year, talking about the Premier League. It's very, very exciting. But before we get into the outright betting markets, a quick disclaimer on this video. As always, I or no one else on this YouTube channel is a financial advisor. This is educational content aimed at improving your knowledge about betting. There is a risk of losing money when betting, and what choices you make with your money is completely up to you. Let's kick things off. Premier League winner. I will get up the market on the screen. Manchester City, very, very, very short favourites. Best odds I can see there's 1.8. Chelsea, next favourites at 6s. Liverpool, very close behind it. You can get 7 in a few places. And Manchester United. And then there's a huge gap back to Leicester, Tottenham and Arsenal. I'll go to you first, George, mate, since it's been so long. A Manchester City fan yourself, do you think the odds are fair or are they very, very underpriced?
I think they're slightly underpriced, but then again, looking at it, the team with the least XG conceded has won the Premier League in 4 of the last 5 seasons, and the team who've scored the most goals have won the title in 3 of the last 4 seasons. You look at City, they've been the top scorers in those last 4 seasons as well. Even when they lost out to Liverpool, they still outscored them. Obviously, with the rumours and it's looking like it's heating up, a lot of people seem to think that the Harry Kane deal will get done probably after the game against Spurs. If they had Harry Kane, they're just adding even more goals to the side. So, yeah, I do think for me, City are a shoo-in for it. I mean, I was kind of looking at it, and as you said, that the price up around 1.66, 1.67 in most places. For me, there's not a lot of value there in terms of that price. I think for me, I do think it's pretty much bang on, and so it wouldn't be one that I'd go in on personally. But yeah, if they sign Harry Kane, then I think personally the title does go back to City. I think they'll get off to a slow start though. Waiting for a lot of players to come back and get up to speed in terms of fitness. So similar to last season, I think at one point they were 14th. People were writing them off, saying, Pep's having a mare, it's just going really badly. And then they end up storming to the title anyway. And I think you could see a repeat of that here. So maybe that price changes over the course of, maybe the first month. But I wouldn't have thought it would change that much. So yeah, I wouldn't be getting on City at that price personally, particularly when you look at those around them who have strengthened. I don't think they're as strong as City, but again, I might be looking through blue tinted glasses, but clearly the price agrees with me. The market agrees with me, sorry. But yeah, you're kind of looking at Chelsea, they're around sort of 6s, 6.0 in most places. And everyone's I think a lot of people are getting very, very carried away with Chelsea. I think they'll be strong, don't get me wrong. I think they're going to be a very, very good side and will push us close. But I think people are sort of thinking, look how well Tuchel's done there. Obviously, the re-signing of Lukaku as well. And don't get me wrong, Lukaku is a great addition. And he's not the same player as he was at Man United. He's not playing under Mourinho. He'll be obviously playing under Tuchel. And I think he'll do really well there. I really do. And he's got a point to prove after it didn't quite work out for him at Chelsea last season. But obviously that's not completed yet. And so far they've not really spent and reinforced elsewhere, like, anywhere of note per se. So selling Giroud and Tomori permanently. Tomori was on loan, obviously AC Milan last season, did very well. But look, Tuchel's a great manager. And I do think obviously that they'll comfortably get top 4, but I just feel like it would maybe take more than just Romelu Lukaku, particularly if City sign Harry Kane, for them to get ahead of Pep's side. So for me, I do think Chelsea are potentially overpriced, but again, for me, it might be blue tinted glasses, but I can't look past City. So for me, it's a no bet for me personally. I do think City go back to back, but 1.67, I probably wouldn't be involved. And then, I don't see United winning it this season at all. And then, so for me, the only other side that could potentially do something is Liverpool. But I think their main focus is going to end up being just to make the top 4. They've not really spent apart from adding Konate, and he's a great addition again alongside Virgil van Dijk. But it's going to be interesting for me to see how Van Dijk does when he comes back. I mean, obviously I've seen a lot of clips through pre-season. He's had a couple of shockers, but it's pre-season. He's not played for God knows how long. So it's all about getting fitness and getting that sharpness. And he's a brilliant, brilliant centre half. So I think they'll be defensively solid. But, they always say when you're at the top, you need to improve. You need to spend. You can't be standing still, because if you're standing still, you're going backwards. And that's what I fear for with Liverpool, really. They have tied up a few players on new contracts, so they've got that assurance. But and it looks like Harvey Elliott might be with the first team from this season. But just looking at those 3, for me, I can't look past City. I think they're the strongest of the lot. And like I said, particularly if they make that addition of Harry Kane, then, I think they're shooing for the title. But at 1.67, it's a no bet for me.
Yeah, well said, mate. I mean, it's hard for Liverpool, isn't it? They got to rediscover that desire, I guess. Klopp emotionally drove them to that title. So Nigel, do you think it's how easy do you think it is for Liverpool to, because we know that they can compete with City, but it might be, we could be talking about soft factors here that they need to improve on, I guess, to get themselves up again. And I mean, home crowds are back too, which really helps them.
Yeah, it definitely helps them. I mean, that was the main reason last season for their fall away from grace, really. I mean, their home form was terrible. They went for a stage of losing against Burnley, Brighton, and all the teams beginning with Bournemouth, I think. I can't remember who it was at the time. But the thing is with them is that they're not spending the money, and that's the problem. They're a squad that played a lot of football, look quite old. A lot of them, you've had a Copa America this summer, you've had European Football Championships, and again, the players are going to come in and be rather tired. So that is a huge concern for Liverpool. The fact that Manchester City have gone out and spent fortunes again on Grealish and potentially Harry Kane, which they're even further behind. It's not in his nature to spend money. The problem here as well is that I think that Chelsea have just. I mean, I can't disagree with the betting. The betting is rock solid. I mean, Man City are 1.62, 1.6 or something like that. And but the problem is the Premier League title. You've got to tie your money up for 9 months. It's a lot of money. You got to have a decent amount of money on it to let that be tied up for that period of time. So I couldn't bet them at that price. The other thing for Liverpool, which is a big thing for Liverpool, is there's African Cup of Nations this year.
Oh yeah.
So Mane and Salah will go missing. That's massive. So for that reason, I think the best bet in the Premier League this season is pretty much saying what George has sort of mentioned there. I feel that Chelsea will emerge as the main contenders. I really do. I think they're the Champions League winners, obviously, as we know. Tuchel's is very astute defensively. The team are hardly concede any goals under him. They went that tremendous run of winning to 0 in pretty much every game they did. They've got an excellent goalkeeper, in my opinion, who's going to play for a full season now rather than last year. And with the arrival of Lukaku, I think he looks like he to me is a brilliant signing. We'll come on to some other markets, but I like Lukaku in. But I think that Chelsea have got into Man City's head as well a little bit. I think Tuchel's got into Guardiola's head. The fact that he's beaten them 3 times last season in the 4 matches they played, and the fact that they've beaten them 4 times in the last 5 they played, suggests that he knows how to beat Guardiola. And you have rivalry, Wenger and Mourinho over the years, and you've had various different rivalries between Wenger and Ferguson. And this looks like it could be the one in the Premier League that's going to run. Klopp may have fallen behind a little bit in the top two in his demeanour and how he is. And I think that the rivalry is going to be Tuchel and Guardiola. Guardiola with the swashbuckling style, and Tuchel with his hard to beat formation with the big front man up front who's dangerous. So I think the bet here, the only value I can see in the Premier League is a dual forecast, which means obviously teams to finish first and second in any order. And I think Manchester City and Chelsea to finish first and second in any order at 2-1 is the bet this year. It's the same price for Man City and Liverpool to finish in any order, but there's too many question marks about Liverpool. Absolutely spot on about Van Dijk. I think he's going to take a long time, a good dozen games to get back to match fitness. And you've got to remember, in the first 6 games of this season, Liverpool played Chelsea and Manchester City, both at Anfield. So that will really determine whether Liverpool are title contenders or not. If they drop points there, then already they're facing a huge uphill struggle at dropping points at home. And I think having Salah and Mane gone as well suggests to me that Liverpool will not be title contenders unless he can go out and buy a striker to cover those. But who is there? I don't know who's available in the world. He could shop the world and buy Haaland, but it's not going to happen. He's not. Who's he going to buy? Who's going to come in to replace him? And I think those two players are so key to Liverpool offensively, and with question marks about Van Dijk returning as the same player. I think these top two are definitely going to be Man City and Chelsea this year, and I think at 2-1, that is the best bet you can get with the Premier League this season.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be one hell of a race as always, but I think that's a great spot from you, Nige, to point out the African Cup of Nations. That's a huge miss for a club like Liverpool. Arguably their 2 best players, but it'll be interesting to see how it all goes. We'll move further down.
Just one. Obviously for Chelsea lose their goalkeeper in that tournament as well. So they've got Kepa who can come in. It's not that, and Man City will probably be about Mahrez, but Man City's quality of play, they've got Mahrez. They can replace him easy. But for Liverpool, those 2 players are just so pivotal, so key to them that I think they'll be affected much more than any other side in the Premier League this year by the absentees from that tournament.
All right, top 4, top 6 markets. I'll get that one up on the screen for everyone now. We'll look at the top 4 first of all. Obviously, the top 4 favourites are very short, but if you like the chances of Leicester and Arsenal and Tottenham to make it in, you've got Leicester at 5.5, Arsenal at as high as 6s, and Tottenham at 6 also. We can take a quick look at the top 6 market. You've got Leicester there at 2.2. Tottenham at 2.2 also, Arsenal at 2.38. I'll go to you first again, George. Your general thoughts on this, and I can add in too. I mean, for any Arsenal fans out there, that the African Cup of Nations will affect them heavily too, with Nicola Pepe and Thomas Partey too. So something to think about there.
Not for me. I don't think Arsenal get anywhere near the top 4. I think they'll struggle for the top 6 personally. Sorry to disappoint you there, Alex, but yeah, those are my thoughts on Arsenal. I've not got a lot of faith in them whatsoever. I'll be honest with you. Can I block you from this podcast? Is that even possible? You carry on, mate. You carry. But no, for me, I think top 4 is barring any sort of shock transfers. And sort of overhauls, I see a relatively straightforward top 4. And I mean, we've obviously just discussed Liverpool in length, and yeah, there's plenty of question marks, but I do think they'll scrape top 4. City, Chelsea, United, and Liverpool for me are sort of the ones that I'll be looking at, obviously, to finish in that top 4. But the price I was looking for, as I said, was the top 6 market, and I was quite surprised to see Leicester to finish in the top 6 at just over evens at 2.1. I think they've recruited really well. It's looking more and more likely that maybe they'll keep Maddison. Obviously from the clutches of Arsenal, and I think they're the best of the rest personally in terms of where we're at right now, where we currently are. They're the best of the rest and should fight for top 4, but ultimately I think they definitely finish in the top 6. You look at the players they've recruited. They've got Patson Daka, he's a great pacey striker, the sort of player that fits in well at Leicester, and they've reinforced their midfield with Samari from Lille, and I think he'll complement the likes of Ndidi very well. we saw in the I know you can't read too much into a Community Shield, and City are quite a few weeks behind, but Leicester side will probably be the one that would start this coming weekend in the opening game, and they're looking a little bit further along than I'd say most teams in terms of fitness and in terms of being ready. And I quite fancy them to get off to a good start. And they've got stability as well with Brendan Rodgers there, and obviously with the type of football that he plays. They're very expansive, they're exciting to watch, and they can go through their periods of inconsistency, but overall they're always there or thereabouts. And I definitely see Leicester finishing in that top six. I look at them in comparison to Tottenham, particularly if Tottenham lose Kane. I know they've tried to bolster their defence. They brought in Romero, who is one of the best centre halves in Serie A last season, made the team of the season as well. And then I look at Arsenal, and I love Arteta. I'm just not sure that I rate him, and I don't think he's the man to be taking them forward currently. And I think there's been somewhat stagnant. Carlo Ancelotti obviously leaving Everton, and it's interesting to see how Leeds will do, for example. But looking at these kind of teams, I just see Leicester as the best outside the top four. So for me, them to finish in the top six at 2.1, I think is a good shout.
Yeah, this is a market that'll be so heavily affected by the next 3 weeks of the transfer market. You've got Maddison, who could go to Arsenal, which is a direct swap within the top six battle, I guess. Tottenham could go, Kane could go to Tottenham. Arsenal could sign more players outside of Maddison. And then I'm not too familiar with most of the teams underneath that, what their transfer business is, but it could be a crazy week. But I do agree with the Leicester pick, mate. I think even if they did lose Maddison, I'd probably still fancy them over Tottenham. Even if you went to Arsenal and Arsenal improved even further, you'd still have to fancy them for a top six place there. And I'm quite shocked that it's actually, I thought it would be below evens personally priced out.
I thought it'd be around maybe 1.85, 1.9.
Maybe it's have they got some African players we're not thinking about? Maybe sure.
Yeah, Ignacio, he's not, and
Nigeria.
Ndidi.
Yeah, so that might be why Ndidi's key for them, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, but I do just, because looking at that, I do still feel that they'll have enough coming into the season to be in that top six. I really do. So just for me personally, I really like that price on them to do so. I think they'll manage that well.
Yeah, they should. Out of all those teams, they should probably hit it the quickest, or at least, that was a terrible way of saying it, but hit the season running the fastest. Yeah. Maybe is the best way of saying it. I wouldn't be surprised if they challenged Manchester United either, but screw my thoughts. How about you, Nigel?
Last season we had the most, or everyone was saying was the most open season we've ever had, the most strangest season in the Premier League. Liverpool losing 6 games at home in the Premier League. And the top 4 in the division were Man City, Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea. So that shows you how random it was. You couldn't even get one of the top 4 out of the top 4 in a season like last year. So Liverpool, their worst season in the Premier League, still managed to finish third. It just shows you just how these top 4 clubs are just so far ahead of everybody else. And for anybody to really challenge them, they've got to spend millions and millions and millions. And unfortunately, I feel that Tottenham have taken a huge step backwards in their manager appointment, and as well as potentially their transfer business. I remember when they sold Gareth Bale, I think they booked 7 new players and had the toilets done. I think they finished 8th the year after. They didn't really do much with his money, and I can't really see. And the other thing is, the new manager, he's never been able to really spend money. And I think that's a really important factor. He's run a Wolves side. Okay, he bought players in the 20 million bracket and the 25 million bracket, but he's never run a side that's going to say, right, here you go, here's £200 million, go and build a team around Harry Kane. It's a big gamble with someone who's not really managed at the top level of that kind of with that kind of war chest. Arsenal, they could have a good season, they could have a bad season. But I think their best hope is probably to win a cup. The FA Cup usually does well for Arsenal. I think that's really what Arsenal fans would love, a top 6 if they can get it, and the FA Cup. And really, I saw Leicester play. I went to the Charity Shield at the weekend and I got and saw the telly, but I didn't think they played that well. I thought they looked off the pace. Maddison gave the ball away much more than he did with it. Vardy, I've seen Leicester the last 2 weeks, actually. I saw Leicester play in a pre-season friendly as well. I know it was a pre-season friendly against QPR, but they put out an extremely strong side, a really, really strong side. And QPR really with a better side. And Vardy, to me, I don't know whether he's had he's been to He's been away with the missus in the summer for a few minutes. He looked off the pace. And I don't know whether
He looked like he'd been
age.
to Latvia. I think Latvia. Yeah.
No, he didn't look like Latvia. No, he looked like he'd been somewhere better than that. He just looks as though. To me, he looks as though he's. You can't really judge it on 2 games, but the thing is with Vardy, I think he's going to be one of them players. As soon as he hits the wall, he's going to be finished because of his pace. He's so reliant on his pace that he just once he loses that quick foot away from defenders, then in running into the channels, which he does, I think he could be finished overnight. And he didn't look to me great, and I think that's one of why they bought the guy Daka in to sort of be a potential replacement for him, because they might see that he's not the player he was a couple of seasons ago. So I can see where you're coming from on paper, and I think they would be the only team that you would think could emerge the top 4, and they should break into the top 6. But it's questionable for me how good they are, especially with the players they're going to lose. I mean, I think Maddison believed his hype for some time, didn't he? Thought he was a lot better than he actually was. Thought he was going to be the new Jack Grealish at the time. But I'm not 100% convinced I would bet them at even money. I think they're very hard markets to have a bet on, and that's for my personal opinion is to bet a couple of teams to finish in the top half rather than the top 4 or the top 6. Because I feel that the top 4 is a shoo-in. We know the order. It's just a question of what order they finish in. And I think the top 6 is pretty much going to be the top 4. We said Leicester and any one of Tottenham or Everton. Tottenham or Arsenal for me. So, and the challenging group are just a little bit too far. So I feel they're markets that really, really are very hard to break the establishment, and I wouldn't probably have a bet on them.
All right, mate. Well, do you want to tell us about your top half bet then while you're there?
Well, the team I want to bet in the top half is Aston Villa at 2.6.
I was going to go with, mate. Nice.
Yeah. I think there should be odds on. I think obviously Grealish is departed, but I think they've invested the money brilliant this summer. I think Danny Ings is a top replacement, the top striker, a proven Premier League striker. Buendia from Norwich was the Championship best player of the season. Very, very talented player. I think he'll be brilliant there. And they've got a good manager. Yeah, Bailey. They've got arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. They've got a very, very strong defence, and obviously with Watkins and Ings now, I think they've got goals in them, and I think they'll improve rather than go backwards on the Grealish transfer. I know he's going to be a player to miss, and the fans aren't happy, but I think at 225, they're a side that I would want to bet. I mean, if you've got a match bet, Aston Villa against West Ham or Aston Villa against Brighton, I'd take Aston Villa to finish ahead of Brighton all day long. But it's a bit of a risk leaving that money in like that. You don't want to be betting something at 1.83 for the season. It's just it's not that great. But I think Aston Villa top half. Last season, I bet Leeds to finish in the top half at a similar kind of price to Aston Villa this season. And I think Leeds will do really well again. I think they're 1.8 to finish in the top half. Maybe a double, if you can do a double, Leeds and Aston Villa finish in the top half. Leeds haven't really spent anything this season, but the biggest factor for me is that they're back in front of crowds at Ellen Road. I think that, they were already a good team last season, finished 9th with that support behind them. And, this is the first time that Leeds fans will see them in the Premier League for, I can't remember how long it is, 15 years now. So I think they're going to be absolutely up for that. And that first game when they play at Ellen Road will be rocking. And I think Leeds and Villa to finish in the top half, probably in a double, would be my pick.
Nice, mate. We'll move on to the relegation market. I will get the odds up on the screen. Favourites in this one are basically the 3 promoted teams, which is sad to see. You got Norwich at just under evens there. Watford basically at evens. Brentford shortly after at high as 2.4 in some places. Then you've got your old stalwarts of the Premier League: Palace, Burnley, Newcastle, Southampton. It's all a bit of a tight race, but yeah, it's disappointing to see the top 3 teams being the promoted teams. But Nigel, mate, I'll start with you this time. Is there anything that gets you excited in the relegation market?
I mean, it's not a surprise really to see that Norwich and Watford and Brentford are the top three. Two of the teams that were promoted last season went straight back down. Leeds were the only ones who stayed up. Norwich will be very popular in the way that the way they performed in the Premier League the last time they got promoted. The performances were so bad, but I think they would have learned a lot from that. Buendia is a big miss for them, but Billy Gilmour has come in from Chelsea, and I think that's a brilliant signing for Norwich. I mean, I'm a big fan of Billy Gilmour. I know he got the man of the match against England in the Scotland game, but I saw him a few times for Chelsea when he was in youth level, and he's an exceptional talent, and I think that'll be an absolute brilliant signing for them. It's whether Buki can live in the Premier League. The first time, last time around, he started off fast, but he couldn't get the goals. I think that's where they're going to lack scoring goals. So I think they're obviously clear favourites. Brentford interested me. They always got good recruitment. Unlike Buki, I think Ivan Toney will score goals in the Premier League. I think it's going to be tough for them. And obviously, who's the other? I can't remember the other team off the top of my head now. Who's the other side that I'm missing?
Watford and Brentford.
Watford they'll change 3 managers by the time Christmas comes, and then they'll have to start again. We'll see what happens there. But I think that you can't really bet them, and they are the price they are. They are the 3 likely teams to go. Of the others, there's a couple of teams. I mean, Crystal Palace, I think, are going to struggle. I think they're going to really struggle. I think it's a very brave appointment, Vieira. Again, talking about the African Cup of Nations, Wilfried Zaha, they're going to lose him. Whenever they lose him, they don't win games. AU will be gone as well. Schlupp will be gone. 3 big players for Crystal Palace. And if you take Wilfried Zaha out of this Palace side, they're pretty much nothing. And their record without him is diabolical. So I think they're in big trouble. But
have they still got Esse?
Sorry?
Have they still got Esse?
He's injured. He's out. He's got ACL. He's out till about January. January time. If he's out for a long time. Nice. He's quality. But I think they're going to have a real tough season. But the thing is, they've been bet heavily throughout the summer. As soon as they got Vieira, they were bet heavily. And at the prices, are they in value? I don't think they are. The one side that the bubble has to burst at some stage is Burnley. Has to. I mean, they've been punching above their weight for so long. Their metrics are shocking. Sean Dyche is a manager that's been linked with Everton. He's been linked with Palace. He was favoured to be the Palace manager job, and he's stuck by. There has to come a time where they hit the buffers and Sean Dyche gets tempted away at a team alongside them in the Premier League or a team in the Championship. I mean, if a team like Sheffield United or something like that is struggling and gets rid of their manager, Sean Dyche could be a potential replacement. Or, a team like a Newcastle, if Newcastle struggle. So I think he holds the whole thing together there. And if he goes, then I feel that they're struggling, because what he's performed with a shoestring budget and what he's performed with the team on their metrics to stay in the Premier League season in, season out is phenomenal. So I think if you was looking for a price to have a bet on, a bit of value, I would probably go for Burnley at 3.5. Because I think 2 of the 3 who got promoted will go down. One will save up, and out of the rest of the bunch, I think Palace will struggle, but they're too short, and Burnley will probably be my pick at 3.5.
All right, and George, your thoughts, mate?
Yeah, see, I've got exactly the same thoughts with Palace. The 2.75 did seem slightly short, but I do think they're going down. I really do. They've got all the hallmarks of a side that are going down. The amount of players that they've lost, first team players due to contracts ending, and they've spent big on a Chelsea under 23 defender. 21 million they spent on Guehi. I think that's how you pronounce it. He was on loan at Swansea, the Championship last season. He was okay, but it wasn't anything to write home about. And they're linked with several players, the likes of Kabak, who was at Liverpool, Adam Armstrong from Blackburn, and Edouard from Celtic. But so far, they've not brought really anyone of note in. Got Anderson from Lyon on loan. He was on loan at Fulham last season as well, and have decided to go down. And yes, Nigel already alluded to that appointment of Patrick Vieira is a brave one. He's not got an extensively successive record as a manager. And like I said, for me, they've got all the makings of a relegation candidates. But for me, it was just looking at it, I'd want a bit of a more juicier price, if you like, than 2.75 to go down. Completely in agreement with Nigel about the other two to go. And it's just kind of which other side follows them down, really. But yeah, at 2.75, it's just too short. But in terms of Burnley, for me, I think they're stable in that they've always obviously got that manager. They're just consistent in the way that they play. And I just think there's a few worse teams than them this season still. I think they'll ride their luck and they'll stay up again. But at some point, they've got to go down. So I agree, probably the value's there. But yeah, I do think Palace will go down. But at 2.75, as Nigel said plenty of times previously on this podcast already, 9 months to have money tied, that's a long time. And at 2.75, I don't think that it'd be worth it for me at that price. I'd want something a little bit more. So obviously, again, I was kind of looking before at Watford at 2s. I mean, I think they're pretty much guaranteed. I just don't think their squad's good enough. But again, those prices just aren't big enough for me to have my money tied up. So for me, for the relegation scrap, it'd probably be, I wouldn't have a bet on this one, to be honest, but I think Crystal Palace will go down.
All right, gents, we'll move on to the top goal scorer, which is probably out of all the markets the most exciting. A lot to play for here. I mean, can be one of those markets where it can go to anyone. I'll get it on my screen. You got favourite Harry Kane, who there's a good chance he won't even be playing for Tottenham, so that's something to keep in mind at 4.33. You got Mo Salah, 5.5, but you got to keep in mind the Cup of Nations there. And then it takes a real steep drop down to Sterling at 21, Aubameyang 26, Gabriel Jesus 26, Timo Werner, Bruno Fernandes, and so on. Nigel, you can start us off again, mate. Where are you looking on this one?
Well, the first thing is if Harry Kane does go to Manchester City, I think that lessens his chances to be the top goal scorer in the Premier League rather than increase his chances. And I think the market will make his odds go shorter. But I think that decreases his chances because the goals, I know Man City score a lot of goals, but they're shared around by so many people. I mean, Sterling will weigh in with 15, De Bruyne will get 15, Jesus will get 12, they're all shared about. So I think, if you're Harry Kane better, you want him to stay at Tottenham. The other thing at Tottenham, he'll play every game. He won't play every game. The games sometimes where Harry Kane, at his age now, I think if they're at home to a side like Watford and there's a big Champions League game and he's at Man City, he won't play in that game. Whereas the game against Watford, when he was playing for Tottenham, he'll start the game and he scored 2 goals. So it's a brave call to take Harry Kane. The man who I want to bet's not even in the betting. That's Lukaku. So, I think Lukaku, we haven't even announced him yet, but I think you can't have a bet on this market without seeing what price Lukaku's going to be because he will play every game for Chelsea. He will be their main man. I did think Werner would have a much better season than last year, and I was looking at Werner in my fantasy football team and various different things. But with Lukaku's arrival, that's completely made his chances diminish completely. There's always people in this market that frame at big prices. I mean, you had Min last year, got 17 goals. He was about an 80-1 shot to be top. Patrick Bamford got 17 Premier League goals, So there's always people that surprise. And if you go a little bit further down the list, one player that I think is a really underrated centre forward in the Premier League, and I think that he wherever he goes, he scores goals, and whatever he does, he's very underrated. And that's Callum Wilson at Newcastle. He's 50-1. Last season, he missed about 13, 14 games in the Premier League. He got injured and was out for about a 2-month period where Newcastle didn't do anything in that 2 months. He still managed to get, I think, 12 or 13 goals in the Premier League. He will play every game if he's fit. He'll take penalties. And I think he is a proven Premier League goal scorer that if he's fit for a season will get 15 goals minimum a season. And, you could place in this market with 15, 16, you come top 3. So I thought Callum Wilson represented a little that bit of value at 50-1. And the other one I thought, it's strange to say this, but I thought towards the end of the last season, I thought he was coming in to some form, goal scoring form, and looking really well, looking good, playing with a team that actually finally played to his system. It's Cavani. I thought Cavani was a big price at 40s. Man, with the service he's going to get from Sancho coming in now, I think Manchester United will be very attack-minded. I think they'll be quite an entertaining watch under Solskjaer this season. I think, the players they've brought in suggest he's going to go for it a little bit. Got a lot of pace in the side. And again, but will he get enough game? That's the problem. Will he get enough? Will he play every week in and week out? You want to be with players that will start pretty much every game. Last season, Bamford at least got 17 goals. He played every game. Callum Wilson will start every game. That's the problem. And that's the market. There's obviously the African Cup of Nations stuff, which we touched on. But I think Lukaku will be the man. What prices? We go back to the prices at the top of the market there. Were you second?
Yeah.
I'm expecting Lukaku to come in between the two of them. I think Harry Kane will be favourite. Salah will be, I think he'll probably be behind Salah. So I reckon Lukaku will probably be around about 5 or 6 to 1 to be the top Premier League goal scorer. And I think that represents a decent bet for me if we can get that kind of price. Anything bigger than 6 to 1, I'm getting. If he goes in at 3 to 1 favourite, I'm not betting him at all. But I think at 6 is that kind of region, I'm definitely betting. But of the outsiders, Callum Wilson would be my each way play at a big price 50s.
Yeah, Kane with, he's been a bit brittle throughout his career too. And yeah, like you said, going to Manchester City might lessen his chances. Salah going to the African Cup of Nations. So yeah, Lukaku might be the way to go. Do you kind of lead with Nigel on this one, George?
Yeah, no surprise. Pretty much echoing those kind of sentiments. I saw Kane's price at 4.33, and I was sort of thinking, if he goes to City, he's not going to play as many games for a start. So I'd be very surprised with that price. I do think he'll score goals, but obviously watching City, we played with that false 9 last season. So Aguero was always injured. Gabriel Jesus couldn't really be relied upon. So that's kind of why goals were shared around. I think if Kane does play for City, the amount of times I've seen us whip a ball into the box, hoping the likes of Sterling's going to get his head on it, is just ludicrous. The striker's dream, some of these balls. But it comes down to appearances. And as Nigel said, if we've got a big Champions League game coming up in midweek and we're playing, if you like, cannon fodder on the weekend, we're not going to risk him. Simple as that. So he's not going to have those opportunities to score goals. So I completely agree on the stance with Kane. And also with Lukaku. Obviously, there's no prize for him yet until that deal is officially announced. Obviously, Nigel touched on Timo Werner, and I quite actually like the price on Timo Werner, just simply because Tuchel does like playing with that 3 up top, but a narrow front 3. And I can see Timo Werner accompanying Lukaku up the top of there. And the amount of goals he had disallowed last season, I watched Werner a lot in the Bundesliga when he was there, and the man's lethal. He did have a pretty terrible but largely unlucky first season in England. But we've seen so many times of players, they take that season to adjust, and the second season they're just on fire. If expected that Lukaku's arriving, look at last season for Inter Milan when he was sort of partnering Lautaro Martinez up top. He had 34 goal involvements in 36 league games, and that includes 10 assists. And just the runs that Werner makes are incredible. They really are. And it does free up, obviously, space for his counterparts. And I think Lukaku is an absolute monster up top, and he's going to draw defenders in. And I think that's going to. I think Timo Werner will play a lot this season, and partnering Lukaku. Tuchel is not shy of. He played a lot with Chelsea actually, that 3 up top as well. So I see Werner getting a lot of game time, and I'm not saying it would definitely happen, but I think 26 is far too high for someone of Timo Werner's caliber. Like I said, I've watched a lot of him, and I still rate him. I was kind of absolutely gutted when Chelsea signed him, and I think at 26 he's far too high. It's massively overpriced in my opinion. Sorry. So Timo Werner at 26 appealed. Was also looking at an outside bet of just the sheer difference in price on different bookmakers. So Ollie Watkins, I'm not sure what the price is now, if it's still there, but for example on Sky Bet, Ollie Watkins was 26 as well, but on Bet365 is at 41. I think he might have a slight not going into the season, but obviously I've got a few Villa friends, and they're all saying that apparently Ollie Watkins in training, they're sort of changing his position. He might be playing further out wide, but he's just banging the goals in, according to them, and he just looks on fire. And watching him last season, he looked like he just had that knack of knowing where the goal is. We've already spoken about Aston Villa reinforcing their side with the loss of Jack Grealish, and I do think they could impress this season. I think this type of signs they made will have an almost immediate impact. It might take a few games to bed in, but yeah, I think Ollie Watkins at 41, if you can get that price, it's just purely a value bet. It's just massively overpriced, particularly when you look at, obviously, other bookmakers price him a lot lower than that. So yeah, I thought that was a good shout as well. So for me, yeah, Timo Werner and Ollie Watkins at the moment. So I want to see what that Lukaku price is, but I think those would be my two go-tos, if you like, for in terms of a value bet.
Just one thing on that Chelsea thing though. With both Werner and Lukaku coming in, it's just who's going to be on the penalties as well. You've got Jorginho.
Yeah.
You've got, Werner took a few last season. Lukaku takes penalties. I think that's a huge factor in taking this, because if they put Lukaku on the penalties this season, then I don't think they will. I think Jorginho will be on the penalties.
Yeah, Jorginho for me, yeah.
Yeah, he'll be on the penalty. And that is a big factor as well if you're betting. So they've got to score these goals from open play. And when you've got Harry Kane, you get 4 or 5 penalties this season. You've got other players. You're 4 behind them, or saying he scores them all. You're at least 3 behind them when you start. So that's an interesting one. And I actually had Ollie Watkins on my shortlist. I was going to actually put him up as an official play. But I just felt the arrival of Danny Ings meant that he shares the goals a little bit more. If they never side Danny Ings, then Ollie Watkins would definitely be a bet at 40s. I think now that Danny Ings has arrived, the two of them, it wouldn't surprise me, the two of them will share sort of 15 goals, 12, 13 goals between them, rather than one of them hitting that 20 plus, but you need to be the top goal scorer.
Yeah, I just think with him playing on the wider side, obviously Danny Ings going through the middle, I think Watkins is going to get more chances, and he's a great finisher. I think the sign of Danny Ings, that he's obviously going to be the main centre forward, which Ollie Watkins took that position last season. I was thinking if he's going to be playing a bit further out wide, apparently Dean Smith, the position wants him to play, I think he'll probably potentially score more than last season. But for me, at 40s, that's a massive price, isn't it?
All right, I'll throw one in there too. As an Arsenal fan, I've got to throw one Arsenal player in there. I wouldn't touch Aubameyang for a start off. I think this man might actually get more goals than him, and that's Nicola Pepe. He came into some roaring form at the end of last season. I think he finally showed what he can produce in the Premier League. And last year he probably only played half of the games, or maybe even less than that, started half of the games. And I think this might be his year where he might start most of the games. So coming in off that right wing, I think there's also a shout. Lacazette and Aubameyang coming to the end of their career. They're both, they both haven't shown much over the past year. I wouldn't even be surprised if Pepe got a shot at striker at some point during the season. I think you can get 126 to 1 for Pepe. I think, I'm not saying that he's going to get top goal scorer. I just think that's well overpriced, especially when you factor in, I believe that Pepe could get more goals than Aubameyang this year, and also Lacazette, who's favoured in there too. But yeah, maybe a little play for everyone out there.
Lacazette 5 to 1 to score the first goal on Friday night. Be the first player ever to score 3 first goals of the season in the Premier League. He's done it twice before, scored the first goal in the Premier League. Yes, if he scores 5 to 1, 3 times first goal scorer in the Premier League.
And you thought you were good with stats, George.
I know. That's a belter.
George, I've never seen him so excited this whole podcast. All right. That's all the main markets we're going to go through. I've had my brew,
mate. That's why.
That's all the main markets we're going to go through today. But George, you've got one other market you would like to go through today. Next manager to leave his post.
Yeah, so for me, I don't think you can look much further than Xisco Munoz at Watford. And that's at sevens. Obviously, Nigel's already briefly mentioned it. But if you look at Watford, it is literally a manager merry-go-round at that club. It really is. They've had 10 managers in the last 5 years, and they tend to switch things up during the season. I believe there was one calendar year where they had 3 or 4 different managers. It's ludicrous. It really is. They're starting the season. They're playing a lot of teams who are most likely going to be around them at the business stage of the season, and they're probably the easier games. So, if they get a few points there, and they're sort of struggling already, I wouldn't be surprised to see them get the chop early doors. I really wouldn't. I think their owners are very trigger happy. And yeah, at sevens, I was surprised to see that price. I thought it'd be more around maybe fours, maybe fives. But the sevens available, I think I saw on Betfair, Unibet as well. It's Watford are going to struggle this season, simple as that. I mean, I think they're going to go down. I just don't think they've got the quality. Don't get me wrong, they've got a few very, very talented players, but overall, as a squad, as a team, I just don't think they've got the quality to survive in the Premier League. And I think they're going to be the whipping boys of the league this year. And yeah, given their history of firing managers, he is the favourite, admittedly, but obviously there's rightly so, in my opinion. And yeah, Xisco Munoz at sevens to be the first sacked really appeals to me. And the other one, for a bit of a higher price, was Patrick Vieira, as we've already alluded to. It's a very brave appointment. He didn't impress that much at Nice, in my opinion. And Crystal Palace, I think they could be in trouble for reasons I've already alluded to. The amount of players they've lost of quality first team players, and they've not replaced them yet. They really haven't. So they're a massive drop in quality, as we already know that they're going to lose Wilfried Zaha. They're without Eze. So they could just get off to it. It could just be awful for them to begin with. So yeah, Patrick Vieira at 8.5. That was on William Hill to be the first to go as well. I quite like both of them, to be honest, at those prices.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Steve Bruce, he's been there for a long time. He's been through rough periods, but they've kept him on. Ralph Hasenhüttl. I mean, so many pundits out there. I've heard them say I think there was one point he's been linked to some big roles, maybe at Arsenal and stuff like that. Mikel Arteta, I think it'll take a lot more for him to get the sack. So, yeah, you could almost look at kind of an arb or kind of opportunity there and have a crack.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. I'll give you one special bet I like as well. Sorry, just going back to going back to the anti-Crystal Palace theme as well. I want to back Crystal Palace to be bottom at Christmas. It's a market that's available. They're 8-1, so 9.0. I think they're in big trouble. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Vieira be gone by then. We saw it before with Crystal Palace when they brought in De Boer as their manager, and it lasted 6-7 games after they got off to a terrible start. And they've got a real tough set of fixtures at the beginning. I mean, they go Chelsea, they've got Tottenham, Liverpool, Leicester, Arsenal, Man City, all before October, in the September and October. They could be way behind. And then they've got to go to Leeds, Manchester United as well. I think their start is very, very difficult. Watford's start is actually quite reasonable. They've got quite a reasonable start. But I think Palace will panic. There's a lot of clubs at the bottom of the Premier League, like Norwich, for example. They know if they finish fourth from the bottom, they will keep with faith for the manager because that's what they want to do. Other clubs like Crystal Palace, like Watford, like Southampton, if they get off to a bad start and their managers are in the bottom three after 8 or 9 games and not putting into performances, they will panic. And the other thing is last season in the Premier League, it took ages for a manager to be sacked. And I spoke to an ex-football player and he said to me that he thought that was because there was no fans getting on the back of the managers in the stadiums. So, and he said, the chairman listened to the fans. They come in after the game and go, we've got a decision to make. We're losing the fans. We've got to have a word with the manager. There was no fans in the stadium, so the pressure on the manager wasn't so much. And was it something I said, Alex? I think we may see a lot of early casualties here because of COVID and because of tight budgets at clubs now. And the importance of money in the game. I think that we may see people who are struggling get rid of their managers pretty brutally and pretty early if it isn't working out. And I think Crystal Palace, Vieira, bottom at Christmas, with that fixture list and with all those players they're going to miss in and no recruitment's coming in, I think they're going through a real tough time.
All right, gents, we've gone through quite a few markets there. You put on a stellar show, although it wasn't looking too good at the start. It was the mood was pretty dire, but that's all right. You guys lifted as the podcast went on. If we had to summarize everything, best ante-post bet or best outright future bet in all of the EPL, all the markets we've been through today, Nigel, mate, where would you take me?
It's a pretty obvious bet. It's the one we started with the show with. But I think Manchester City and Chelsea to finish in the top two in any order in a dual forecast at 2-1 is the best bet. Negative towards Liverpool with the African Cup of Nations. And I think Chelsea with Lukaku push closer to Man City and those two pull away from the chasing pack.
All right. That's conversion for that is 3 in decimal odds for those who are not very good with fractions like myself. And what about you, George?
Yeah, for me, I'll go in with what I said before. I know we've had different opinions, but Leicester to finish in the top 6. For me, I just look at the other teams. I think they're the best of the rest, and I think they'll be fighting for that top 4, regardless of the African Cup of Nations. I think they've just got the quality. They've got the manpower to see them through. The other sides just aren't as good as them, in my opinion. Simple as that. So Leicester to finish in at the top 6 at around 2.1.
Well said, buddy. All right. You can find these gentlemen on Twitter at Seeley_Nigel and check out premiersportsplays.com ahead of the new season. Nigel's got subscriptions for all the leagues in Europe, so plenty of stuff to look at there. And you can find George on Gamble at CGeorgeGamble for all his card stats, which I guess you won't be updating for another 5 games into the season.
That's, pretty correct, because I'd rather stats be pertinent rather than just using last season. Lots of things change. So about 5 games in, that's when all the stats will be posted.
Yep. And George_CGG for, I guess, all the other bets on all the other markets that you'll be putting out. So, some great follows there for everyone. Next podcast will possibly be a preview for this weekend. Have to talk to the boys to see who's available. But other than that, thanks for listening, everyone, and thank you to you, gents, for coming on again. It was a terrific chat. Please make sure you do a quick rate review of the podcast. Subscribe to us wherever you listen to the podcast. Give the video a like. Subscribe to the channel. We're very close to 10K subscribers. It's very exciting. Enjoy the Premier League season and go Arsenal. Thank you, gents.
Cheers once again for having me.